Before we begin, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications, because today we're diving into a story that deserves to be heard. Frank Sutton may be remembered as the loud and explosive Sergeant Carter, but behind those iconic outbursts was a man much more complex. His voice, his expressions, and his fiery presence on screen made him unforgettable, yet few people ever understood what pain and pressure were hidden beneath the uniform. The man fans saw on TV wasn't the man who lived quietly off camera. Sutton carried scars from a place far darker than a sitcom set. These scars shaped everything he did, even years later. His journey through fame wasn't smooth or glamorous, it was filled with battles, some seen and some deeply hidden. Long before Hollywood came calling, Frank Sutton dreamed of a life rooted in discipline and honor. As a young man, he looked up to the United States Marine Corps, admiring their strength and unity. When World War II began, he saw it as his chance to serve with the branch he respected the most. But fate had its own plan. A simple color vision test shattered that dream almost instantly. Sutton was devastated, yet determined not to step back. Instead of giving up, he chose another path that led him into the U.S. Army. That decision would place him directly into the heart of one of the most brutal war zones in history. Sutton was sent to the Pacific, a battleground known for its relentless conditions and deadly missions. He wasn't a soldier watching from a distance. He took part in 14 assault landings. These missions pushed him to the edge of fear, strength, and survival. Nights were long, days were unforgiving, and danger was never more than a breath away. But Frank endured every moment with courage that surprised even his fellow soldiers. Through bravery and determination, he earned the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. Those medals represented sacrifice, but he rarely spoke about them. To Frank, they were reminders of trauma, not trophies of honor. They were memories locked away deep inside him. When people later asked if his wartime experience influenced his acting, Sutton didn't give a dramatic answer. He simply said, "I remember what it felt like to be scared and trying not to show it." That one sentence revealed everything about where his intensity came from. The sternness in his voice, the tightness in his posture, and the explosive anger were not just comedic tools. They were echoes of a soldier hiding fear behind authority. Every shout on screen was connected to a real memory. Every glare was drawn from feelings he once lived through. Sutton carried the war with him, even when he stood beneath studio lights. It shaped the man as much as it shaped the character he would become famous for. After the war, Sutton wanted to rebuild his life in peace. He enrolled at Columbia University, channeling his discipline into academics and theater. He graduated with honors, proving that his intelligence was just as strong as his determination. Acting wasn't just a job for him, it was a way to explore emotions he had once been forced to hide. For a while, it seemed like he had left the soldier behind. But life has a way of carrying the past into the present. The trauma remained with him quietly just beneath the surface. Even when he stepped into new roles, the shadows of his combat years followed him. They were invisible, but they shaped every character he played. Everything changed in 1964 when Gomer Pyle, U.S.M.C. premiered. Jim Nabors' sweet, innocent Gomer paired perfectly with Frank Sutton's intense and fiery Sergeant Carter. Their chemistry was immediate and unforgettable. Sutton marched onto the screen like he had been born in uniform. His reactions were sharp, his timing was flawless, and his presence was powerful. Audiences loved him instantly. But the more loved he became, the more people assumed he was Sergeant Carter in real life. That misunderstanding would follow him for years. The character overshadowed the man behind it. The success of the show brought millions of viewers, but behind the scenes, things were far more complicated. Sutton was extremely dedicated to his craft. Every scene mattered to him, every line had to land perfectly. He rehearsed more than anyone else on set, treating every episode like a live performance. Jim Nabors worked differently, relying on natural charm rather than strict preparation. Their styles clashed, creating quiet tension. Sutton didn't shout off camera, his silence was more intense. Over time, they worked together professionally but grew distant personally. Only the cameras brought them into each other's orbit. By its fifth season, the show was still a massive hit. But then, without warning, Jim Nabors decided it was time to move on. He wanted to focus on music and variety performances. For Sutton, the news was devastating. He had given everything to the character and the show. CBS rushed to find a solution, pitching a spin-off centered entirely on him. They even planned a new dynamic that would flip the show's formula. But Sutton had no interest in returning to the uniform. He felt trapped by the role and wanted something more meaningful. He shocked the network by declining their offer. Instead, Sutton joined the Jim Nabors Hour to explore new creative ground. It was a chance to escape the box that Hollywood had placed him in. The show blended humor, music, and warmth, and Sutton found relief in not having to yell in every scene. The audience loved him, but the network wasn't satisfied. They believed he didn't fit the musical theme. CBS made an ultimatum: remove Sutton or risk cancellation. Nabors refused, choosing friendship over corporate pressure. It was a rare moment of loyalty in an industry that often forgets the people who build its success. The consequences were swift. Despite strong ratings, the show was canceled after 2 seasons. Publicly, CBS justified the decision as part of their rural purge, but insiders whispered a different story. The network never forgave Sutton for refusing the spin-off. Nabors' refusal to abandon him sealed the show's fate. Sutton was heartbroken. Just when he thought he had escaped the uniform, Hollywood pulled him backward again. Nothing he did seemed enough to break free from Sergeant Carter's shadow. It was the beginning of the hardest period of his life. The early 1970s were a quiet and lonely time for Sutton. Offers came, but they were all the same role dressed in different clothes. Angry sergeant, angry boss, angry authority figure. He turned most of them down. He was tired of playing a stereotype. Instead, he returned to theater where the work felt real and fulfilling. On stage, he was finally seen as an actor, not a caricature. Audiences who watched him live discovered a range he rarely got to show on television. But even there, fans followed him with memories of Sergeant Carter. It was a burden he never chose but couldn't escape. At home, Sutton found comfort in reading, studying, and spending quiet evenings with his wife Toby and their children. Family was the only place where he wasn't expected to yell or perform. But the years of being boxed into one role took a toll on him emotionally. He felt unseen, misunderstood, and limited. Fame had opened doors but locked him inside a character he no longer recognized. Still, he handled it with dignity, never taking his frustrations out on those who loved him. He kept everything inside, the same way he had during the war. In 1974, Sutton seemed to be finding peace again. He had returned to theater with renewed passion. That summer, he was performing in a play called Love in Shreveport, Louisiana. It felt like a new beginning, but life had one final cruel twist left. During a break between performances, Sutton collapsed in his dressing room. It was a massive heart attack. He was gone before help could arrive. Only 50 years old, still filled with talent and stories he never got to share. The news left fans and friends heartbroken. Jim Nabors released a simple but emotional tribute honoring the man behind the uniform. Even after his death, most tributes focused only on Sergeant Carter. Very few mentioned the war hero who survived 14 assault landings. Very few remembered the scholar who graduated with honors. Very few acknowledged the gentle, thoughtful husband and father. His achievements were overshadowed by the character that defined him. And for decades, that deeper story remained hidden. People saw the anger but never the pain. They heard the shouting but never the silence that followed. His true identity remained a secret kept behind the character that made him famous. Everything changed when an old interview resurfaced in 2023. In it, Sutton revealed the truth he had kept quiet for years. He admitted that the show boxed him in and made his world feel small. He respected Nabors, but they were never close. He said he yelled because he was frustrated, not because it was who he was. Those final words revealed the heartbreaking reality of his life. Frank Sutton wasn't Sergeant Carter. He was a soldier, a thinker, a husband, a father, a man who carried invisible scars. And when we watch him today, we should remember the human being beneath the uniform.